All right. Thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you can get out of this meeting whatever you'd like. And if not, please feel to reach out to me afterwards and we can discuss, what your goals are. I am going to ask everyone to mute for sure. Just so there's no background information or noise going on. And then we will have, I'd love to set up additional Q&A sessions. And then we can also kind of almost do like little networking sessions. So if you have any questions, just write them down. I have a lot of stuff that I kind of want to cover, and so we probably won't have time for questions today. So just jot them down and then also shoot me out your availability to have a future meeting. Okay. All right. So what is Power of Work? And you can see the whole screen, right? I want to make sure that, because I have everyone's faces here too. Good. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So Power of Work is a nonprofit, and we focus on providing jobs, right? We strongly believe in the power of employment. We think that it can change lives, and that's what we're here to help with. And our initial stages of the nonprofit is really looking to take fairly intelligent people and help them switch careers. That's a little bit of an easier goal. Like in the end, we want to help the entire world and we want to make the world a better place, but we're definitely making some solid goals for ourselves and just starting with specifically clinical research, which is where we have our connections, because we also believe in the power of network, and connections is a really, almost unfortunately, a lot of how the industries work. Right? It's kind of who you know. And so the goal with Power of Work is that if we can help train and educate people and they can go on to we help them, secure jobs, then we can continue to expand our network. And we want to kind of keep a Power of Work family so people can get to know each other and have kind of a mentoring system in the future. So if you go off and you get this amazing job, and eventually you can help us place other people on your future team when you're the manager, right? So that's why we think that we can really grow this, and this can be a very self-sustaining nonprofit. It also doesn't take too much. It's a lot of what we do is training. We have a training platform. We do job placement and trying to help search of the jobs, and so we'll create a big chart for you and kind of help you find positions. And then also we do resume review and the interview prep. And so that doesn't take much in a sense. It's just a small group of us, and we're able to help and support a lot of people. And so it's, I feel like it's not something that we have to work really hard to maintain it. I think we can have a pretty high impact with pretty small resources of my free time basically, and other people that help make this reality. So to date, we've had about 15 people kind of graduate from our program, and 10 secure jobs within clinical research. So the other 5 are in other industries. We do want to focus on clinical research because, like I said, it's where our connections are. And I wanted to give a little story to kick this off. So basically, and this happened today and yesterday, where basically I had somebody who needed employment. And they're like, hey, they've been out of the industry and they wanted to get back in. And they said, hey, I really want to do this. I said, okay. We instantly put together a really nice job chart where we had a whole bunch of different jobs, and we kind of classify them if they're remote, or, kind of understand what the person's looking for and also what their qualifications are. In this case, this person was very highly educated and experienced, but usually we have more entry-level people or people who are switching careers. And then we noticed on the list, we actually had somebody who we had previously helped, and then they went to a company and they had left that company, but we reached out to them and we said, hey, do you know anybody? And they're like, yeah, I know them. I'll email them, right? And so those kind of things make a huge difference when you have that kind of personal connections. In an ideal world, you could just submit your resume and it would be equally looked at, right? But that's not actually really how it happens. And from the background of being somebody applying to jobs and then being on the other end as a hiring manager, a lot of times there is, you're looking for some sort of connection, some sort of referral, because that helps mean that you think this person's qualified or you think this person's a good person, and you know them, right? and you'd want to work with them again, or, you just have that connection. So it ends up going really far in this industry. And as a result, the person who was looking for a job just had an interview this morning. And so we're hoping that it works, and they think it's going to be a perfect position for them. And it's those kind of little connections. We had the original person who worked there before call the other person this morning, even though they're like, it was very last minute, but the interview was at 10 a.m. and around 9 they said, "Hey, I'm available." So they quickly touched base, gave them an update on like the who's like all the little details they could think about even like in clinical research, like the protocol and what it's like, what issues the studies have been having, and just to get understanding of the desires of the company in the group. And I think that really helped. And it's not a guarantee that the person will get the job, but I think having the connection even helped the resume be looked at, and then having some inside knowledge to know what the company wants, and also like what, a little bit about the people who they're interviewing with. So all those things are useful, and that's kind of a little example about how power work can help facilitate that, right? It's not just kind of blindly trying to apply you to things, and we do that if we don't have connections, right? But the connections do go really far. And then another example of something that we're really happy with is that we've recently partnered with a TMF consulting company called Sentinel, and we're really hoping to integrate with them where we can train people on TMF and then potentially have them work with Sentinel, maybe starting off as interns, but then developing into positions and having those connections. And we want to do that with so many different companies and across different industries. So that's kind of the overall goal, and hopefully that gives a little understanding about what power of work does and kind of how we're trying to facilitate people to get employment. So one thing that kind of helped kick this off is we were already thinking about this, and we had already had our nonprofit started prior to COVID. But when the COVID numbers came out in terms of how many people were unemployed, it really hit home to the fact that like we had to do this, right? Before it was kind of more of a dream and we were kind of like laying the foundation. But then we realized that there's a lot of people and how much employment can change lives, right? And so we definitely want to be up and running, and we want to make sure that we're there as a support if this ever happens again, right? Or if there's any sort of crash in the economy or something, we want to make sure that we are a good support network and being able to really help people. So that's our goal. And then now I was hoping to dive into a little bit about clinical research, right? So clinical research, you may have heard if you're, staying up to date on COVID aspects. I feel like a lot more people are informed on like what clinical trials are. But clinical research is kind of that healthcare science that creates the medications that you see, and they run clinical trials. And so I'll go over a little bit of some high-level terminology. Or actually, I wanted to give you some interesting facts so you can see kind of the impact of clinical research. This is a lot on the screen, but just overall, the goal is that there are a lot more studies, right? So from 2000 to 2019, there was 2,000 registered studies, and now there's 300,000 registered studies. That's a huge increase, and it's a fairly, not, I would say, like a completely new kind of industry, but it's an industry that's kind of exploded. And so there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know TMF. And we'll go into a little bit more about what TMF is, but that's why there is this opportunity where people who can be trained and have fairly like limited experience can really have a big impact, because not that many people have experience in it in general. And then just some rates on, having an impact to creating a better world, with the percentage of people who were expected to die from cancer has significantly decreased due to a lot of research. And then people typically have a positive experience with research. And then one aspect is that there is a large amount of drug medicine production that happens in the US. So they're saying 5 of the 10 top pharmaceutical companies in the world are headquarters in the US. And then again, showing the increase of the production. So there was 229 new drugs in that kind of 10-year decade in the 2000s. And then while in just 2019 alone, it was already 59 new drugs. So it's definitely a rapidly growing industry, and I think it's something that I've been in for a long time and have greatly enjoyed. I find my job to be very rewarding and also like not insanely difficult and interesting too. So I feel like it has all the aspects that I'm looking for in a career, and I'm hoping to spread the word and help others see if they want to develop a career. So these are just some general terminology. I thought this would be useful because it'll kind of help when we go dive deeper into TMF and clinical research to just know some terms. So CRO is a contract research organization, and it's basically the company that the sponsor, which is a company who has the drug, hires, right? So it takes a lot of work to run a clinical trial. And so instead of kind of assume, even the largest companies, I work for Genentech, which is a very large established biotech company. They still don't even do everything in-house. They do a lot more than most companies do in-house, but they still rely on a CRO to manage what's called a CRA, which is a monitor who goes out and takes a look at the institutions, which are like the hospitals that run the clinical trials, right? So CRO is, in a sense, the management. The sponsor is the one that usually has the responsibility. They're the creators of the drug, and they're the ones that want their drug to be approved, right? So they need to have oversight on everything, but that doesn't mean they have to do everything. So when it comes to TMF, a lot of companies have the CRO, or they have just somebody else. Like, if, for example, we're partnering with Sentinel, that can be a third-party kind of boutique CRO that's not handling the monitoring, but just handling the TMF processing or inspection readiness aspect of the clinical trial. And then I think it actually, we'll go over, so an IRB is the Institutional Review Board, which is really like a patient protection, right? They're trying to make sure that, you know, these are people and they're receiving medicines and making sure that everything is compliant. So it's good that it's not just willy-nilly. Like, I just saw the Venom movie, and it just, you know, they were just like randomly like capturing homeless people and giving them the alien drug. And it's just like, that's not how clinical research goes. Like, don't worry, that's not what we do. But it is very important, and the idea is to cure people and to help make people's lives better, right? And so it's for the prevention, treatment, analysis, and relieving symptoms of a disease. So I love this career line because I feel like it has the ability to have an impact and make people's lives way better. And as we saw in the one of the initial slides, where, you know, cancer expectancy, like life expectancy has gone up a lot. And I think that's something that is great. Like, I know a lot of power of work people or graduates now work for a company that like does rare diseases. And that's like, it's very fulfilling. And so I think that's a really nice aspect to have for your career. We all want to be able to feed our families and take care of ourselves, but it's nice to be able to have something that you enjoy doing and you have a purpose for. Now, this is a slide. It's a lot. We're not going to go over it much, but this is just kind of an idea to show that there's a lot of jobs. And this is kind of even just some of the high level stuff. The clinical research is a huge, like, so many people have to touch and be involved. Because like we said, there's patients and there's safety aspects, and there's a lot of coordination and management that goes along, which is good, because that means if you get into this industry, there's a lot of different avenues. You can explore different things, and I find that exciting. Like, it's not uncommon for people to get into something and explore something for a little bit, because that knowledge of how that one thing works, you can take that knowledge with you as you work on something else. You'll be like, oh yeah, so like, I now have a greater understanding of clinical research and clinical trials in general, and I know in detail, like, the drug supply and how things are shipped out, and that will help me run the study better, right? So it's really common for people to constantly switch roles over a couple of years, and I think as a result, it helps people stay in the industry, because it's kind of something where you can keep learning and keep growing, because people value a lot of variety of experiences. For example, I wanted to see if we have it on here, but there is a like a project coordinator is a person who works at the site, the institution that is running the trial with the people, right? So the sponsor is the one that has the drug. they give the drug to the hospital or the university. So like you can imagine like Stanford University. And Stanford is the one that goes out and asks people, hey, do you want to participate in this study? And the project coordinator is the person who is kind of an entry-level position at the institution, and they help them, coordinate it. They take people in. Sometimes they have making sure that the nurse knows to distribute the drug to this patient, or they'll schedule the patients. And so it's a very kind of hands-on position. Sometimes the role is done by a nurse, and they'll actually like give them injections and things like that. But usually it's not. It's usually more of a kind of a coordinator, entry-level role. And as a result, a lot of people love to hire CTAs from a project coordinator experience, because you have a little insight to the process, and it's a very different insight, but it helps to be on the sponsor end and to know, okay, that's what happens when they're trying to coordinate this, right? So it's a lot of these positions kind of overlap, and you can move easily in between them. And so it's really interesting, and we can dive deeper into the different roles. I think eventually we should do a deeper TMF meeting, and we'll go over the TMF reference model and the map. And that goes over a lot of the different documents and the document owners, and we can talk about the different positions. For example, a while ago, I had actually run a TMF department, and I hired 2 of my friends to work with me who didn't have any sort of TMF experience, but we just needed people to help out. And TMF in general is usually kind of more of an entry-level position. And as a result, it helped them see what all the different jobs are, because TMF has like sight over a lot of positions. And as a result, like one of my friends ended up moving into clinical supply, which is who sends out the drug. And we can go a little bit more into TMF. So TMF is a trial master file. It's a method that's used worldwide to collect and file documents in the clinical trial. And a lot of the time it talks about if it didn't happen, if it wasn't documented, you can't prove it happened, right? And the goal is to have your study, right? That the sponsor has a study, and they want to run the study safely and have people have great results on the drug, and then go back to kind of the regulatory agencies, such as like the FDA, and say, our drug is safe, it's great, we'd like to sell it. And then basically the FDA will do an inspection and review it, review the data, see like were people really getting better, but they also want to see, was it managed appropriately? And that's a big qualification in getting the drug approved. And so as a result, the TMF is the way a lot of times they see if it was managed appropriately. It's a big folder of all the documents. And back in the day, it used to actually be big file cabinets, and you take paper documents that people collect from the hospitals and bring over and say, okay, these are the documents, and we'll file them here, kind of a thing. Now it's more digital. And like I mentioned, another reason why it's a good industry to get into is that a lot of the people that were around when it was paper never learned the digital system. They moved up, and so there's not that many people who know the digital system and know how to file TMF. So it's a good place to break into. There are a few companies that still do paper, but most of them are transitioning. If nothing else, they're in the process of scanning all their documents and making sure that they're in their digital TMF. So you have an insight. If you're able to learn the TMF and learn the online systems, you can have an advantage, because now you know this new skill that not that many people have, but they need, right? You just saw the huge increase in the number of clinical trials. All those clinical trials need a TMF, usually need a whole team of people to manage all the different studies that are being run. And then, of course, we want to keep everything compliant. So GCP stands for good clinical practice. So again, we're trying to show that the study was run appropriately, like patients were, taken care of, and that nothing, safety issues were documented, and the TMF documents all of that. So it's really crucial, and it shows kind of the relationship between the investigator, the sponsor, the institution, and basically, if it's not complete, which it happens a lot, like it's not that this is a smooth, super easy thing for companies to do. Like I said, it's fairly new to a lot of companies, and it's just one component of many components, right? So as a result, a lot of times the TMF isn't ready when the FDA says, okay, we're ready for an inspection. So that's why it is something that's important, and there's a demand for it. So yeah, so that's my little overview. I thought that would give everyone a quick little introduction to what clinical research is, how it kind of has a role that TMF plays within clinical research to help show that management and to confirm that everything is been done correctly, and then how Power of Work tries to help, right? So eventually Power of Work wants to have everyone have employment and, you know, help people globally. But right now we're just really focused on what we think we can do, and to develop a big network of people who we can help, and then they can continue to help other people, and we can really make an impact in the world. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining.